What's up, everybody? I am excited to be back for this episode featuring the one and only, we call you Champ nowadays. That's his family name right now.
I think that's deemed by Joshua Lin.
Josh Lin, yeah.
What's up, Champ?
It was so funny because my mom was like, wait, when you coming home? And then Josh was like, my older brother was like, excuse me, Mom, I think you meant to say Champ, when you coming home. But anyways,
he seems to have forgotten that we have two champs, huh?
I mean, I think his favorite has always been his littlest brother. But all right, we're back with Joseph Lin, fresh off of a championship. Man, we just had a pretty unique season. There are not that many people in the world that can say they teamed up with their sibling in professional sports and won a championship in their first season. So first question, 1 to 10, what was it like playing together? Did it meet your expectations, not meet your expectations? What would you want to see change in the future if we were to team up again?
I would say it did not meet my expectations for, it's not just one reason, and there were a lot of things out of our control, but I would say...
Well, let me jump in, 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Start with the 1 to 10. That gives everybody a good idea. Like 1 being like, maybe that was disastrous, nightmare, and 10 being...
Maybe like a 6.5.
6.5.
Which is not very
Every
good.
time I ask him 1 to 10, he does all that. Dude, there's a time when I asked him how good this restaurant was, and he was like, 7.35. I'm like, bro, just choose 1?
No.
Choose 7 or 8.
I usually do the 0.5s. I don't know where that... I was probably trolling for that. Yeah, I'd probably say 6.5. So, what is that, a D? That might be a D.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we could achieve. I think we could achieve a 9. I think,
but a 10 is just not possible.
Well, 10 is just.
I'm joking.
10 I just think is unrealistic for any situation.
Yeah.
I think we could achieve a 9. I expected it to be a 9. I would say injuries played a big part of it. I feel like our chemistry never really got to where it should be or where it could be.
For those of you who don't know, he just kept getting hurt all season long. So
I was actually the one person that didn't get hurt
or
stayed relatively healthy.
I was hurt for 3 months. So that really.
I think we can achieve like a 9. I think it's definitely possible for us to achieve a 9, but there are just a lot of extenuating circumstances that happened in our team that didn't allow us to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
so I wouldn't say it's your fault. In short, I wouldn't say it's because of you.
I appreciate it. But I mean, still, there's definitely ways that we both can and need to be better if we do decide to team up again for another season. You want to talk about that?
Talk about
if we do team up together, like what are ways that we individually need to improve or ways that we can make it better? I mean, we don't have to talk about the extenuating circumstances because that's not as relevant to today's conversation.
Yeah. I think we can... I think we just need to play more together. I think we didn't get that much practice time together. I think that's where it all started from. I think that's where a lot of chemistry is built, is through practice and game-like situations. I think communication can be better. I think that could be better. I think, for us, what we need to improve, I don't know. What would you say?
I mean, I think if I were to boil it all down, I feel like we didn't reach. I mean, I agree with you in that. Like, I probably would say it was like a 6 out of 10. Just like I felt like it was too much like us taking turns. Like, oh, it's my turn or it's your turn, but it wasn't really us playing off of each other super dynamically. Like, if you actually look at the record that we had together when we started and we were playing a lot of minutes together, it's a very high record, but I still feel like we never really figured out how to be like a two-headed monster in tandem. meaning we're playing heavily off of each other. We have a great flow. We know exactly when you need to bring it up. We know exactly when I need to bring it up. There's too much uncertainty. Like you said, a ton of extenuating circumstances. But really, it just felt too much like, hey, it's me. It's my show. Boom, it's not my show anymore. Boom, it's your show. Figure it out. And then boom, send it back to me. The biggest thing I think we struggled with was when we were on the floor together, like I felt like you were really passive. I'm not saying it's all your fault, but I just mean you were kind of lost. You got lost on the court when we were on together.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. So
like
next
I didn't
year,
know how to play. It's like sometimes I didn't know like how to play.
Yeah.
When I was playing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing, which we've talked a lot about throughout the season, at the end of the season, in terms of like, hey, if we're going to do this again next season, we want it to look this way so that it's, you know, it's more smooth and it's more even and balanced. And so, you know, we have a lot of different ideas, and that's something that, like you said, with practice time, with another summer of training, if I do decide to continue my career, you know, and we have some good training sessions this summer, like these are all things that we'll definitely be working on. Cool. I mean, along the same lines, I mean, I just kind of want to recap what it was like just as brothers, because I feel like that's the biggest thing that a lot of, you know, the feedback that we're getting that a lot of people want to hear about is, what was it like playing on the same team with your brother? So, I mean, what was kind of like, let's start with, what was the best part about playing with each other? What to you?
The best part about playing with each other, I would say almost it's just being in close proximity. We can enjoy like daily life. So it's not necessarily on the court. Like we could go eat a dinner like whenever, and you also chose a place really close to me. So that helps a lot too. Yeah. But we're able to just get a meal whenever we wanted. We could go, you know, I don't know if we ever watched a movie, but that was available.
We did watch a movie. We watched multiple movies. Thanks for remembering. We watched a movie, and then you told me, oh, we should watch another movie. And then I brought our whole team to watch that movie, and then everybody hated that movie and then blamed me.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
It's just nice to have someone on the team that I know cares more about me than, you know, the performance or the record or how the team is doing. It's just nice to have someone that, you know, is always got your back. It was nice to see you every day.
Nice. I appreciate that. What were some of the best meals that we had together?
Best meals. So
just give like a top one or two.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about if I want to say the restaurant name.
Yeah, you do. My whole point is I'm trying to get a free meal from them for next season. Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Walk by Oban.
Walk by Oban
was a really nice meal.
We'll be there. Party of 10 on the house.
We had a good meal with the fam at what was that really expensive place? You took me and Dad.
A-Cut?
No. It wasn't steak.
A-Cut's delicious though.
Yeah.
Raw. Raw is delicious.
We had a good meal at Raw. We had multiple meals at steakhouses.
Yeah. There's another restaurant. There's another fine establishment that we actually went to a lot that we really enjoyed.
Omakase?
I mean, yeah, there's Lee Show as you know, Omakase for sure. You actually have their orange juice with you right now. McDonald's, that's right. McDonald's was definitely a good one. Cool. I mean, what was some of the worst parts about playing together?
Some of the worst parts, probably you might not even know. I would say just because throughout the season, I think, let me just start it with this. It's hard for people to play with a really good player. It's not always easy to play with a really good player, like i.e. LeBron, right? Like a lot of people actually prefer not to play with LeBron because of maybe, it could be whatever reason. It might be pressure. It might be you might not get the ball as much. When you do get the ball, you got to score it. Or if you don't make it, then you might not get it again. So I think it wasn't me necessarily. There's some times where I had to experience that throughout the season where maybe I wouldn't touch the ball as much, and then maybe I wouldn't have a flow. But The hard part was when other people would go through that, and then I would see their reactions towards you or towards the coaching staff about you.
Yeah.
So I would see that, but like I would almost get like mad, like stop complaining, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would always have your back, but it was tough to see that because you're my brother, and like sometimes people feel that way about you.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the toughest part.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is for every player who needs the ball or demands the ball. This is always the difficult part. This is always the balance. And I've kind of learned that if you are to be a cornerstone franchise player, you will always, for the most part, like 98% of the teams in the world, like you'll have some people upset because those people want to do more and they feel like they can do more. And that's true. They can do more. On every team, there will be players who can do more. And that's just a reality. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they should do more or that's what's best for the team or that's what makes sense. And sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But it is definitely, like you said, a very fair point, and it's not easy. And so to kind of be teamed up now and seeing people feel like, oh, dang, Jeremy has the ball. I wish I had the ball more, or I could do that, or I should be able to do that. Like, I can understand that for sure. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Best and worst parts about playing with you?
Sure.
I mean, best part for sure is, just seeing you every day. Like I'm, I feel like I say this, and every time I say it, people don't like really believe me or they don't understand it. But they see how I am around people I'm close with, and they expect me to be like that with everybody. When I'm goofy or when I'm loud or whatever, like with my family, they expect that that's my natural personality all the time. But around people I'm not comfortable with, or people that I just met, or people that I don't know that well, I'm actually very shy, and I'm actually naturally much more introverted than extroverted. So normally I'm just not that social, partly because I'm just naturally not that social, partly because like there's kind of a power dynamic at play in terms of me being like me, and just kind of harder to break down those barriers. But being on the same team with you, it was just very natural. Like every time I saw you interacting with you, it was just a very natural, non-stressful environment. And so I really appreciate that. When it's people that I don't know that well, sometimes like if they get nervous, I'll actually get nervous, or sometimes I'm just nervous myself. I'm just like, I don't really know how to make new friends sometimes. Can be awkward. So yeah, it was nice just to, see you every day and joke around, laugh, and have fun, and just feel like, dang, like he understands me completely. He knows who I am, and that's that. The worst part about playing with you, I mean, I think we'll get into that later because we had a really like difficult conversation. So we'll get into that later. But that's the worst part to me was kind of just like the tough conversations. Like those are pretty painful. Those are pretty difficult. And like, how do you all of a sudden go from like big brother, little brother, and like we're brothers to like we're coworkers, we're peers, and like, you're seeing people that are unhappy playing with me at times. I'm seeing people that are unhappy playing with you at times. There are times when we're unhappy playing with each other. Like it's just a lot in the work environment, and like that part is I definitely don't enjoy, but you're willing to go through it for the end result, or not even the end result. You're willing to go through it because you believe that there's a better outcome or a more united team that you can become. And that's what ended up happening. So, even though we're talking about the worst parts, I would say all in all, if you're talking about, is this a successful season? I mean, hell yeah.
The results speak for themselves.
It was a successful season. Went through a lot of stuff, but yeah. What impressed you the most about playing with me, and what impressed me the most about playing with you? I'll answer that later.
What impressed me the most, I would say just how much you value your relationships. there's a point in the season where I guess one of our teammates, very important teammates, asked me to hold a meeting with the core players or to get like a get together. And I did that for him. It was solely for him. And I found that very tiring. And I was like, man, like having to help somebody else, but like solely for them, and to have to gather other people around the team and to, and for this one person, it's not even for myself. I thought it was like doing that a few times, I thought was very tiring, just having to mentally, be there for everybody else and to worry about somebody else. But you were doing that for like many, many people consistently. I would say meetings are also very tiring for me. I don't love meetings. Whether it's meeting with one-on-one or a group, but you're holding multiple meetings every week with different groups of people all the time, and you're always having meetings after practice. And I'm just like, mentally, that would just, I don't know if I could. I don't think I could do that, because just a few of those meetings, maybe say if I even had one a week, I'd be like, nah, that's too much. But I'm like, you have to understand, like, people don't do that. Like, people on our team, like, if you were to point out players that have meetings, like, on their own with, like, say, the coaching staff, like, no one. It's only you. So, like, people don't do that. And, like, that's really, really tiring.
Yeah. We had a lot of meetings this year because we had a lot to work through. And, I appreciate that. What impressed me the most about you? What impressed me the most about you was just how close you cut it every time we have to get on the high-speed rail. So if it's like 10:55 high-speed rail, this dude is walking in at 10:54 and 52 seconds. And if we're on like train 8, like he only has time to get on at like train 3, and then he's going to walk on the inside of the train to get to train 8.
Through 4, 5, 6, 7.
Through 4, 5, 6, 7. Because his ability to like just get there on time, I've never seen it. No, but what impressed me, I would say what impressed me was, for real, was you're very even keeled. You're very even keeled through the highs, through the lows. You always like, I feel like you didn't, like everyone's going to go through X amount of like doubt, right? Like, oh, I'm not playing well, or my confidence is shook. But I feel like overall, like I was very impressed because I'm a very emotional high-low person. But you were able to just be very stable through it all. And you went through some stuff this season, which we'll get to as well. So, yeah, I would say that's what impressed me the most. You know, I wanted to ask you, now that we've kind of won the championship and it's sunk in for a couple weeks now, how does it feel? What are your reflections on that?
Feels amazing. I feel like what we went through as a team this season, we should not have won the championship. Like
we kind of stole one?
Not really stole one, but if there's a time for other teams to beat us, it was this year.
Like you felt like we didn't steal one, but there might have been teams that are more deserving.
Yes, there were better teams than we were.
Yeah.
We weren't the best team. We were just
in
more
terms
talented.
In terms of unitedness.
Yes.
Like
yes.
togetherness.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were just better in terms of talent.
Well, we were also united enough.
Yeah, we were united enough. It's not to say like we were just like 20 individuals saying F you to the other. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that at all. But there were better teams.
Yeah.
So I felt like if there was a team, and it's like we just had so many circumstances that just shouldn't have allowed us to win.
Yeah, it was a tough year. I mean, just to recap for people, we had, I had a 5-game suspension. Another player had a 15-game suspension. Another player had
20.
No, that was just the first one. He ended up being suspended 3 times. He ended up being suspended 3 times. In total, those 3 suspensions ended up over 35 games. Our regular season is only 40 games long. So we had those 3 suspensions. We had tons of PR issues. We had players all types of attitude issues. We had a player
We
you know,
played
quit on
without
the team.
we played without a center for more than half the season.
Yeah.
The first half of the season, we pretty much played with no true five.
Yeah. We switched a lot of lineups. Of all of our games, we played 48, 50 plus how many playoffs? 60. We played 60
Including ESL.
yeah, including EASL, we played 61 games. We had zero games where we had a fully healthy and not suspended roster.
Yeah.
0 out of 61.
Yeah.
Craziest year ever.
That's why I always said, like, even in my podcast, like, I wasn't super worried about our team, even though we were going through a slump, because we were never, one, healthy and, like, not suspended.
Yeah.
So I felt like if we were ever able to get everyone, you know, healthy and not suspended, then we'd be good.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of hate for that.
Yeah,
But it's just facts.
But hey, basically, like, in our last 2 to 3 weeks of the season, we had to win those games to make the playoffs. So we were able to win 2 huge games down the stretch of the season. We were able to make it to the playoffs, and we were able to win the whole thing. And so, yeah, quite a miraculous turnaround. Yeah, definitely a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been pretty open about my struggle with pregame anxiety, but you don't seem to deal with this at all.
There are times where I lack confidence. But I would say that might be through, like, mid-game. Like, if I'm going through, like zero rhythm.
Yeah.
Like, in the playoffs, in the series with the Dreamers, I was lacking confidence.
Yeah.
In the series with the Pilots, I did not lack confidence, but I just didn't play well the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So I do lack confidence sometimes, but that's more of, like, throughout a game. If, like, my shot's really just not feeling it,
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, this is, like, I just don't have any feeling in my, like, rhythm right now. But pregame anxiety, I usually don't. But, you know, we've had multiple conversations where I feel like things don't affect me, but you feel like things do. So maybe I do, but I just don't realize it. Like, maybe things do affect me more than I realized, but at least for me, I don't consciously feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, you know, I mean, and you've seen me before the games, like, my nerves are on another level. But I was
People can't tell, though.
Yeah, people can't tell, but you know.
You've told me.
But you know.
You have let me know.
I've talked to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, people can't tell.
Yeah. But Joe's just over there just choosing the next song.
No. I go through the same things, like you said before, like, wow, I, like, almost airballed my first shot coming out of warm-ups, and I'm like, yo, this is not going to be a good day. Like, I go through that type of stuff, but I just rep it out till I'm like, nah, it feels where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then, like, at least it's, like, maybe 80% there. So it's like, all right, like, you still gotta go.
I think the one thing that people really misunderstand you for is that you actually also have a very strong love for the fans, or even for certain media or people that you feel like really appreciate you, right? Like, and I think growing up, that's always what, you know, always struck me the most as your brother was like, dang, like, I've always said, like, Joe loves people and he loves them. Like, you love hard. Like, you really love people. And when you spend time with people that you care about, like you're relational, like, you just really, really appreciate relationships. You have a deep love for the people around you, or the people that really, like, care for you. And this part is less known and less talked about because a lot of your persona, or a lot of what has been shown, is kind of what you have to say against the haters, which is also another very real side of you. I mean, you know, I'm going to give a shout out, Ling Jia Huayan. Like, you guys are amazing. We appreciate you so much. But additionally, outside of Ling Jia Huayan, there are also amazing, die-hard, hardcore fans showing up all the time, rocking your gear, rocking my gear. There's along the bleachers, like, where people are sitting, there's, like, all of your jerseys that people are buying hanging over the edge. Like, What do you kind of had to say about that, or what are some moments that really stuck out, or some gifts, or some interactions that like you were like, man, that really touched me?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of stuff. I would say just like some of the stuff that you get, you can tell has taken a lot of time, but because you get so much stuff, like you're not necessarily gonna post it or, you know,
See that he gets so much stuff from
no,
fans that he can't even post it all. There's
no. It's
not
just
enough
like
time in a day to post all the gifts.
it's just because you don't want to like post over and over again about everything that you get. But you know, some of these things take a lot of time, and you read the messages and you can tell that like, you know, they've put a lot of thought into it. So I am thankful for that a lot, and I hope that they know that. But I just, you know, I'm not always able to just, you know, show it out on media, like social media or whatever. But I would say this year was definitely another leap or another test into who really supported me, because obviously of what happened in game 2. But I would say I was really touched by just a lot of people sent me Bible verses. So like whenever, you know, you went through that time, like you know, you asked me about like, hey, I think God's really trying to talk to you, and like you let me know like, hey, like our prayer group is really praying hard for you. Just want you to know that. Like at that same time, there's a lot of just fans just sending me Bible verses. So I think that was also really touching. I think everything added together kind of just, you know, I was like, okay, like kind of waking me up. So I would say that time was definitely very touching. Obviously on top of game 3, all the fans supporting during that time too was,
I mean, do you want to talk about the kind of the birthday video and gifts and all that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, all those fans that were there waiting for me after we won a championship, and they waited, and like, you know, we were celebrating for a couple hours maybe, and they were all still waiting there. Appreciate all of you guys. You guys can definitely tell that I had a very genuine reaction. You know, when you guys gave me the cake and, you know, sang me happy birthday, even put happy birthday on my car. I appreciate all that. And I think that also, you know, on top of that, whenever I added extra practice, you guys waited more than 2 hours for me to come out of the arena. So definitely really appreciative of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I mean, knowing you, growing up with you, this is the side of you that, you know, one, you really care about people. You're deeply touched by them. You love hard. But another part is you also struggle to express it all the time. The depths of what you're feeling, your appreciation, your love, right? So unless you know, someone, it's like someone who grows up with you, they don't know that. So I think that's actually a huge part about what's missing amongst Taiwan fans and media, is that actually sometimes you're not the best. You're trying to figure out, how do I express everything? And I see that a lot in the interviews too, in the post game press conferences. It's like sometimes you're not even sure how to fully express everything that you're going through and thinking, and so sometimes that comes off as cold, or like, it's just, to me, it's kind of like this, just very misunderstood. It's like, actually, like, I don't know how to express it, or I don't know how to say it in Chinese, or like I haven't fully processed that yet. Like,
well, I think a lot of things for me is I like to deal with it myself. When I get in those modes, it's almost like I feel shame. So it's like when I feel shame, then I just don't want to talk to anyone.
yeah.
So that even comes out like even after a game, like I'm coming out of the arena and I don't want to say anything to any fan.
Yeah.
Some fans might be like, oh, he's like arrogant or whatever, but it's like, no, I just had a 2-point game. Like I feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm embarrassed
Yeah.
of having a 2-point game. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Just let me go home and let me like think about my own thoughts, and I'll figure it out myself. Like do it myself. Like that's kind of like, that's where that process comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I see it, because the biggest thing for me is when you have a bad game, the first thing I do is a lot of times I give you space. because I know you need that space. There's times when I don't, but it's always like in my mind, like I try to be calculated about it, right? Like when you have a bad game, you need space. And when you aren't a super jolly person, it comes off as like very arrogant and cold. When you have a really good game, you're also not all the way sure, how do I express all of this? How do I express all of my emotions? Like you internalize, you think internally a lot, and this is something that like, you know, it's like, oh shoot, like this happened, like I really appreciate you, but that, and you might say a few lines, but it doesn't really get to the depth of what you're feeling. You know what I'm saying? And that also, and because of that, it's not like anyone's walking away being like, look, he's arrogant, but it's like they don't see the full picture of who you are and how much you love and appreciate the support and love they give you. Like, and that's another part of it too, right? So through the good and the bad, I'm like, man, like I just kind of wish people understood you more, and I wish you knew how to express yourself more to other people. But I think it's a work in progress. Cool. I mean, kind of running out of time, so I kind of just wanted to jump into, man, we had two pretty pivotal moments in this season. There was one where in the middle of the season, me and you had, how long was this conversation upstairs?
You said 2 hours?
Something like that. It was about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours or something. And it was a really difficult conversation. And basically, I just kind of challenged you for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And I just told you, you know, some of it was basketball related, but really what kind of hurt me even more and that I talked about was just like you as a brother, as a person, and like ways that like I felt like you needed to be more humble, ways that I felt like you need to learn how to lead better, how to care better, how to serve better. Obviously, there are certain areas where I was like, you really need to figure out how to play better. Like it was a lot. To me, that was a pivotal moment because that moment showed me that we could talk through anything. Like, if you could have heard the content of that, like my main message to you was basically just like, humble yourself in every way. Like it was an extremely difficult conversation, and I walked away being like, that's exactly why I signed up to play with you, because I knew it wouldn't all be rosy, but I always was also confident that when it wasn't rosy, we had enough of a foundation. I mean, we had a super strong foundation as brothers to be able to talk through anything. And this doesn't mean we had to always agree, but we could talk through anything. And I was respected and appreciate that. And you've been like that, you know, throughout my life. Do you kind of want to talk into that a little bit? I mean, what were your thoughts on that? What was your takeaway? And like, you know, and you can even fill in some more of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, you remember it better than I do.
I had written notes.
I think to me, it was more of a conversation to be forgotten. No, but like you said after that conversation that you could see like a change in me, but in my own opinion, like from my perspective, I didn't really notice like a change in my approach. I would say I definitely was more proactive to watch film because that's one of the things that you wanted me to do.
And you also changed in terms of being a brother. That was a big change.
Yes. But to me, yeah, I guess. But to me, that wasn't like what I was doing before versus what I was doing after. To me, wasn't like that. It wasn't like crazy difference, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was telling you like you're doing nothing and you're at 0 and then you need to do everything, you're at 100. But I just think there were ways where like, okay, I'm here and like, okay, maybe I'm at like, you know, 60 and I just need to get to a 70, right? Like it's not realistic in the middle of the season or overnight or in a short stretch of time to all of a sudden become like a brand new person, but it's more just taking active steps, right? Like when it comes to learning how to lead or learning how to love or how to serve people, like that's a lifelong forever process, but even taking some small steps in the right direction is a big deal, right? And that's what you're starting to do. You want to kind of talk through kind of some of, whether as a person or as a player, kind of what you saw or what you felt. Because I felt like this was at least a turning point. This was a turning point in some sense in terms of kind of us teaming up together.
I think in terms of basketball, it was mainly about aggression.
Yeah.
Like when we play together, I just need to be more aggressive. So I think in terms of basketball, that was kind of the main thing, was just how do I be aggressive with you on the court. But then you got injured.
No, yes, with me on the court, but at that time, it was actually how do you just be aggressive, period. Because I had been hurt already for a month. This was before EASL Final Four. I'd been hurt for a month.
Yeah, but we had played, because I remember we played about a month of P League games. And we had it, like I played well.
Well, when I got hurt, the team was really struggling. And I told you that you needed to be more aggressive, way more aggressive. And then that's why EASL Final Four. And after, like, multiple coaches came up to me and were like, yo, Joe's literally a different player overnight. Like, he completely became so much more aggressive. Like, he's playing so much. Like, that's what everybody was talking about.
So I guess part of the conversation was me taking more ownership of just my own stuff and stop blaming other things, even though those things can be blamed, but they can't be the brunt of what's happening. They can't be the focus. So I guess the focus was just, taking ownership, and I guess aggression was part of that. So I guess after that, we went into EASL, played a good game at EASL.
Final Four
Against Chiba Jets. But I didn't play well in that next game.
Yeah.
But my aggression was there. Like it wasn't because I wasn't aggressive. And then came back to P League, set assist record for P League. And then
right here, 19 assists. Like what I saw as your brother was, I felt like you were blaming a lot of situations on a team, circumstances that existed. But like you said, they exist, but is that going to be, am I just going to say like, okay, these problems exist and that's that? From now on, everything bad that happens is because of those issues? Like, no, it's like my whole point, my challenge to you was take ownership and figure out how to deal with it despite that. How do you be better despite that? How do you find a way to win despite that?
Oh, I kind of remember now kind of what the conversation was, but we can't really talk about it. I was really unhappy with stuff that was going on in the organization. Yeah.
And you were just you're just in a sour mood, and it was hard to be around you every day.
Yeah, I was very sour because I felt like I gave so much thus far up until that point to the organization, but I wasn't getting anything back. So I kind of just went into it like, all right, well, I'll just be passive and see what happens. Yeah. So I was kind of letting the circumstances, environment affect me. But yeah, so you told me to basically just not let those things affect me and to take, my own ownership and to get the things that I feel like I should get.
Yeah, because the reality is, even though those things are true, there's still a lot of ways that you could be better, and that's true for any player. It's like no matter what's going on, there are ways that every player can be better. No one's ever played a perfect game. So, I thought you did a great job with that. Anyways, the whole point of me telling that story was just it was a head-on confrontation. Head-on confrontation. Like I was just like, yeah, I don't even want to say it. But I appreciate you giving me the space. These types of conversations is what it's like to team up and work with your brother every single day, day in and day out. And there are times when you had very direct challenges and conversations with me, and you're like, you really need to do this better. You got to get better in this area. Not as often, but you definitely had times where it's like, yo, like, that's not cool. Like, this guy has got to improve. And so, like, being able to communicate at a brotherly level was really helpful in terms of us being able to figure out how to be a better like team. And obviously, like after going through the season, like we're definitely closer because of just you go through that season of life, you go through the trenches together, and when you come out, it's like, dang, we really did that. So, and then the last thing I want to talk about was kind of just there was one stretch where you were struggling, like you said, you're struggling in the playoffs, you're lacking confidence. It all culminated game 2 of the finals. We're on the road, and the opposing arena, 6,500 fans, are all screaming your name, Ling Su Wei, in unison, laughing at you, mocking you. And I remember in that moment, like, I almost cried. Our general manager almost cried. Like, multiple people almost cried because of, like, how much they were taunting you and how bad it made us feel. And then, you know, I mean, that was that was the only thing people were talking about after game 2. Was just like, Joe is struggling so bad. Da, 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 da. And it was like, Ling Su Wei chanting. Then game 3, we go back home. You go off in the fourth quarter. You hit the game winner. And then that turns around the entire playoff, the finals for you. You end up with, you know, every game after was a bunch of points, team high in assists, won 3 straight games, won the championship. Huge turning point. Can you give us a little bit more insight into the backdrop, the background of that story? What did you really go through, and how did you feel after game 3 when they're giving you that post-game interview? Like, I could tell from the interview, like, you were so touched. You were just so glad. You were so relieved. You were awkwardly thanking the fans, like, because you were just like, damn, like, that was awesome. Like, share that.
Yeah, I mean, I was struggling throughout the whole playoffs. It was tough because a lot of things were not necessarily in my control, but enough was. So I guess when that happened, when it happened, I don't think people like it didn't affect me as much people thought. Like I heard it, but like it started when I was shooting 2 free throws and I made the first one. So I was like, like I wasn't thinking too much about it, but they were still chanting my name. And I didn't really look at like too much news or after that, but apparently I was getting killed by everybody. But I think like throughout that, I was still getting like a lot of messages, both good and bad. Like there was someone that wished me to like break my leg, like hoping my leg would break, and like, you know. But there was a lot of messages also that were sending me Bible verses during that time. And during that time, I mean, I guess before that you had always, you know, hey, I think you should, you know, get back to God. I think God's trying to teach you something or tell you something, because I was struggling in the first round as well. On top of that, you told me, you know, your prayer team was praying a lot for me. I think you have more than one prayer team as well, so it might have been 2 prayer teams that are praying a lot for me. So I guess it was just on top of that, like, you know, my girlfriend is, you know, sending me Bible verses. Her friends are also sending me Bible verses. So it's like just like blah, 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 of all these Bible verses. And if that's not God talking to you, then I don't know what is. So it was definitely a culmination of all of that, and where I was like, okay, you know, I'll speak, like, I'll talk to him, I'll pray to him. So
can you give a little more context into where were you before that with your relationship with God? Because, you know, at the start, first game of the season, I remember I was like, hey, do you want to pray? Like in the locker room, right before we were about to go, I was like, hey, you want to pray real quick? And you're like, no. Like, it was like, yeah, like an allergic reaction, like anything at the mention of God's name, you were like, I don't want anything to do with it. Like, can you describe, like, why did you feel that way? Or like, what, you know, how did you kind of end up there?
I would say just because, like, throughout all my years at Fubang, I felt like there were a lot of years at Fubang where I was, you know, trying to really have a great relationship with God, but I felt like I just went through so much. I felt like I went through so much being backstabbed at Fubon that it was almost like why would I keep trying to have a great relationship with you when I still have to keep going through people backstabbing me. So I guess it kind of like I was at a point where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to do it on my own. I think that's kind of where it came from. Yeah.
Which I think is a very relatable thing, right? It's like, okay, I'm trying to get closer to God, but my circumstances aren't changing. They might even be getting worse. I'm going through adversity and suffering. Like, is it worth it? God, are you real? Do you exist? Like,
Yeah, and I totally understand. Like I grew like I would still say I'm Christian. Like I feel like I'll always go back inevitably. Just depends when. And when I go through hardship, like in college, like when I will go through hardship throughout the year, every time in the summer, I would always come back. Like I know I'm gonna come back. I just don't know exactly when. But this absence from God has been my longest absence, where I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna do it on my own. And I know that, you know, God and works, or God and blessings aren't, you know, just because you're good with God doesn't mean you'll receive a lot of blessings. I know that, but that doesn't mean I have to go through like trash year in and year out. That was, you know, that's what I felt like. Yeah, I'm not expecting you to give me all the blessings in the world, but you can't give me the same situation every single year. Like that's kind of like how I felt. And I was like, but you are giving me the same situation every year.
Yeah.
So why don't I just try to do it by my own? And when I did that, I felt like I did get myself into a better situation. That was kind of like where I was coming from.
Yeah, and I think that was, you know, so you had a very like, and I like to describe it as like you had a lot of years of melted ice, like ice after ice after ice, and all of a sudden you had a very hardened heart towards God. And then all of a sudden the playoffs come around, high pressure, high stakes, and you're really struggling through the first series. Then for the first two games of the finals as well, you're really struggling, and like your criticism has never been higher than after game 2 of the finals in your whole career.
Yeah.
And you know, things turn around, but I'll kind of let you take it from here and share it.
So then I guess I kind of just talked to God a little bit, pray a little bit. But it wasn't like I was like talking for hours. It was just quick. But I know that, you know, he can change anything, and like it's not like he could you know, miracles can happen off anything. So then the next game, obviously, you know, had a good game, and then the whole crowd was chanting my name, so it was very touching.
They were chanting your name, but in a positive way this time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that was just, you know, that was really touching. It was touching to the point where like a lot of people cried. I don't usually I don't cry that much. I did not cry, but I know a lot of people did, but I was really, really touched.
You felt a little bit of a tear starting to form, but it didn't come out, right?
If I tried, I probably could have. I probably could have. It was also at the same time, like, this is what you're talking about, I guess, even killed. It's just, I was also thinking we still have 2 more games. Like, this is not the end. So there's nothing to be there's nothing to be super incredibly emotional about, because I still got to perform. Yeah. Like that was 1 game. Yeah. Right. Like we still got.
We're up 2-1, but we got 2 more wins.
Like up 2-1 does not mean that much. Like, obviously, up 2-1 and being down 1-2 is a big difference. But like there's still another half of the series to. So that's what I was kind of thinking at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, last question here. You know, I told you, I said our prayer team is praying for you. If this turns around, I just want to let you know, like, God is right there and doing it for you in the middle of it. Because I felt like for so long you felt like God had let you down. But I wanted you to know that sometimes we feel like God lets us down and like our dreams are crushed. And that's the reality of life is, what we felt like we wanted, God felt like wasn't best for us. But there are also many times when there are things that we really do want and God does bless us with that. And it's important to recognize that as well, which is why I've always kind of, with you, what I've seen is I've always challenged you to find balance, right? Like there's haters, but there's supporters. Find the balance. There's, times when our dreams are crushed and times when our dreams aren't crushed and are achieved. Find that balance. And I told you, I felt like, if it was going to turn around, God was going to turn around for you. I wanted you to know that. Then right after, on the court, I'm screaming and I give you a hug and I go, that was God, right? You remember what you said?
I don't actually, but
you were like, I know. And then I was like, okay. And then,
but I did say it in the post, the interview.
In the press conference after the game. In
You're
the post game.
You were talking about after game 3.
Yeah. You said it in the post game interview.
Yeah, I did both.
And you also did the press conference.
Yeah.
But I was only there for the press conference.
Right.
And that's the first time I ever heard you talk about God in like, how long has it been since you talked about God in a press conference?
Couple years. I've definitely done that at Fubong many times.
Yeah, earlier on, for sure, earlier on. But never since you kind of hit that point and you're like, God, I'm good without you for now. Like I'm running away from you, right? I thought that was a beautiful moment. Kind of, I think the beauty of this podcast and of us sharing our stories. Okay, relax. I think the beauty of us sharing our stories and talking about stuff in the middle of the season or after the season is that we're never really there. Like we're always a work in progress. And I just want to kind of last question, just, to top it off, like, where are you spiritually? And like, I don't feel like life is all about these like Disney fairy tale endings. Like most of life is not a fairy tale happily ever after type thing. I don't know where you're at. We haven't talked about it since the end of the season. Where are you at spiritually and kind of what did you learn from that experience with God?
Yeah, I mean, what did I would say that experience was definitely just like what I always thought, but I guess what I always believed, but just maybe like hurry up. Like I believe in God for sure. It's just in my eyes, I'm like, oh, like, I'll find a time to go back. Like it'll happen eventually, but in some people's lives, like that time may never come because you never know what's going to happen. So I think that's kind of God's way of just saying like, now's the time. I would say right now, spiritually, I'm not probably the same as where I was during that time. So very, very mild. I'm not doing like crazy, like I'm not doing any 30-minute devotionals or anything, but that's not going to happen overnight. So I think it's just, time to get back and just slowly start to build that relationship, because it's a relationship, right? Like it's not going to overnight just become like an amazing relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of like through all of scripture, right? Like it's never about like how you perform, right? Otherwise the Pharisees would have been by far and away like the best performers. So it's not about like, oh, every day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, you have to do 30 minutes and only then will you. I really think throughout scripture, God has always like really judged people based on their heart posture. Of course, if you have the heart posture, you will follow it up with works, but he doesn't judge you on your works. I think what I've seen and what I've noticed is that your heart posture is different. Like you were very ice cold, allergic, anti anything related to prayer or God or anything. And now you're kind of coming back to a place where God has kind of melted away some of that ice and you're much more open and like, God, I want to, maybe I'm not there yet today, but I want to reconnect with you more down the road. I think that's a beautiful story to tell. Cool. Any last words?
Thank you to all the fans that supported us. we didn't let you down. I'm glad we didn't let you down. It's been a very up and down year for Kings fans, but I'll be back next year, and we'll definitely be fighting for another championship.